The bridge was empty. Just Olivia, Victor, and the river below. She never saw it coming. One second she was standing there, 7 months pregnant, confused, asking why he'd driven her out here at midnight. The next second his hands were on her. Hard, deliberate, no hesitation. He threw her like she weighed nothing. The fall lasted 2 seconds. The water hit like concrete. Cold swallowed her whole, not slowly, not gently. It reached inside her chest and grabbed everything. Her lungs locked, her body seized. The current spun her sideways and pulled her down. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, could only fight. Her legs kicked. Her arms pushed against water that felt like wet cement. She broke the surface, gasped, went under again. The babies. That thought cut through everything, sharper than the cold, louder than the current. She kicked harder. She broke the surface again, barely held it. Her whole body shook, fingers completely numb. The river was dark and wide and it wanted her dead. Above her on the bridge, Victor's silhouette. He wasn't running, wasn't panicking. He was watching. Then he turned and walked back to his car. That image, his back turning, shoulders relaxed, burned deeper than any cold ever could. But then something moved on the bank. A figure running, no hesitation. He hit the water before she could process what was happening. Strong arms found her in the dark. A voice she hadn't heard in 11 years said her name. And Olivia Collingwood realized the man pulling her back to life was the same man she had once broken apart. It didn't start at the bridge. It started 3 hours earlier, in the cold. Victor had taken her to his warehouse on the edge of town, said it was work-related, said he needed her to check something in the storage unit. Olivia trusted him. She always trusted him. That was her biggest mistake. The moment she stepped inside, he was behind her. One push. The freezer door swung shut. The click that followed was the loneliest sound she had ever heard. -50 degrees. She lasted 10 hours in there. 10 hours of screaming until her throat gave out. 10 hours of pacing to keep her blood moving. 10 hours of whispering to her babies, telling them to hold on, promising them a world outside these walls. His voice came through the intercom only once. Calm, rehearsed, like he had practiced it in a mirror. The life insurance pays out double for accidents. The river will look like one. I'm sorry it came to this. She begged. She wasn't ashamed of it. She begged for her children's lives. He turned the intercom off. By hour 6, her fingers stopped feeling like hers. By hour 8, she stopped shaking, and she knew enough to know that was the most dangerous sign of all. The body quits before the mind does. But her mind never stopped. She thought about her babies. She thought about the life she deserved. And somewhere beneath the ice and the betrayal, she thought about a boy she had loved at 19. A boy with kind eyes and steady hands. She didn't know why she thought of him then. She would understand later. Victor dragged her out of the freezer himself. She was too weak to fight, too cold to run. Her legs barely held her as he walked her to his car, one hand gripping her arm like she was luggage. He didn't speak, didn't look at her. That was the part that broke something inside her. Not the freezer, not the river. The silence. The way he handled her like a problem he was solving, not a person he was ending. The drive to the bridge took 12 minutes. She counted every one. When he stopped the car, the river was already loud beneath them. Black water, fast current, November cold with no mercy. She tried to reason with him, one last time. She put her hand on her stomach and said his name. He looked at her hand, then at her face. Something crossed his eyes, not guilt, not grief, just calculation, like he was checking a box on a list. Then he threw her over. The fall, the impact, the cold that made the freezer feel warm by comparison. She fought, God, she fought. Every stroke was agony, every breath a battle. The current kept spinning her sideways, trying to turn her under. Her stomach made everything harder, harder to move, harder to float, harder to do anything but survive 1 second at a time. She stopped thinking about Victor. She thought only about air, about up, about her children. And then the arms found her. Strong, certain, like they had always known exactly where she was. She didn't know who it was, too far gone for faces. But she felt safe for the first time in years. She saw his face when he laid her on the riverbank. The world was tilting, vision blurring. The cold had gotten so deep it felt like it lived in her bones, now in her teeth, behind her eyes. But she saw his face, and her heart did something complicated. Connor Hartley, 11 years older, jaw sharper, eyes exactly the same. He pressed his jacket against her, talking steadily, telling her to stay awake. Phone already at his ear. His hands were warm and she wanted to cry because she had forgotten what warm felt like. Olivia, stay with me, I've got you. She wanted to ask what he was doing there, how he found her, why he was on this specific riverbank on this specific night. She couldn't form words yet. She just looked at him. He looked back, not with pity, with something fiercer, something that looked like fury. Not at her. For her. Later, when paramedics came and lights were too bright and everyone moved too fast, she grabbed his hand. He didn't let go. And in that moment, freezing, broken, barely alive, Olivia understood something Victor never had. She was not alone. She had never been as alone as Victor needed her to believe. Connor Hartley had just proved that. But the question that would keep her awake in the hospital for days was simple and terrifying. How did he know where she would be? The hospital room was white and too quiet. Olivia lay with monitors on her stomach, listening to 2 heartbeats. Steady, alive, still here. She cried for 20 minutes when the doctor said they were okay. Then she stopped crying and started thinking. Connor sat by the window. He hadn't left. Nurses asked him twice if he was family. He said yes both times without blinking. She watched him from the bed, jaw tight, shoulders carrying something heavy. She asked the question, "How did you know?" He looked up, held her gaze. Then he told her. 6 months ago, a charity gala. He had watched Victor with Olivia. Not what Victor said, how he said it. The way Olivia's shoulders pulled inward when Victor touched her. The way she smiled with her mouth but not her eyes. Connor had seen that look before, on his own mother. He couldn't walk away. So he hadn't. He watched carefully, not obsessively. The way you watch something fragile being held carelessly by the wrong hands. When Victor took Olivia to the warehouse that night, Connor followed. He heard everything through the intercom, called the police immediately. But the river moved faster than the response time. So Connor jumped in himself. Olivia listened without speaking. When he finished, she said one thing. "You watched over me for 6 months and never told me." He nodded. "I didn't want to scare you. I wanted to be wrong." They didn't talk about the past that night. But it sat between them like a third person neither wanted to address first. Olivia had met Connor at 19, first week of college. He spilled coffee on her notes and spent 2 hours rewriting everything he'd ruined. She fell in love with the way he took responsibility without being asked. 3 years together. Then her mother got sick. Olivia made the decision alone, withdrew from school, wrote Connor a letter saying she was letting him go not because she stopped loving him, but because she refused to let her circumstances become his burden. He called 14 times. She didn't answer, because she knew if she heard his voice she would break. She told herself it was the right thing. For 11 years she told herself that. But lying in that hospital bed, watching him refuse to leave, she wondered if she had just been afraid. Afraid that love couldn't survive pressure. Afraid to find out. Victor had seemed simpler, safer. She understood now that she had confused control for safety. Connor had never tried to control her, not once, not even now. He was just there. Steady, quiet, certain. She looked at him a long time. He looked back. Neither of them spoke about the 11 years between them. Because some things don't need words to be completely understood. The detective's name was Reeves, tired-looking, thorough. He sat across from Olivia with a notepad and asked her to start from the beginning. She did. The warehouse, the freezer, the intercom. Victor's voice explaining the insurance payout like he was reading from a work memo. The bridge, the fall. All of it without flinching. When she finished, Reeves looked at his notepad for a long moment. Then looked up and said the thing she had been dreading. "Mrs. Collingwood, your husband is already saying you fell." The room went cold differently. Victor had moved fast. His lawyer had a statement ready within hours. The story was clean. Olivia had been emotionally unstable during the pregnancy. She wandered to the bridge alone. A tragic accident. Victor was devastated. The freezer had been cleaned. Olivia felt the ground shift. But Connor was already ahead. He had recorded the intercom audio on his phone, documented Victor's car at the warehouse with timestamps. His legal team pulled security footage from a building 2 blocks from the bridge. Victor thought he was untouchable. He didn't know that Connor Hartley had spent 11 years becoming exactly the kind of man that people like Victor couldn't buy, couldn't intimidate, and couldn't outmaneuver. The fight was beginning. And for the first time since she hit that water, Olivia felt something other than cold. She felt dangerous. The night before the preliminary hearing, Connor came to see her. She was in a safe house his team had arranged. The twins moved constantly, now strong kicks, impatient, like they already knew the world was waiting. Connor sat across from her at a small kitchen table, 2 cups of tea between them that neither touched. He told her what the legal team had found. $3 million life insurance policy taken out 8 months ago. A secret account Victor had been filling for over a year. A woman in Phoenix. A whole new life already being built. Olivia listened without expression. When he finished, she asked one question. "Why are you doing this for me?" He didn't answer immediately, looked at his hands, then at her. "Because I walked away 11 years ago and let you walk into a life I should have fought harder to protect you from. I'm not walking away again." She wanted to say it wasn't his fault, that she had made her own choices. The words didn't come. Because what he said reached somewhere she had kept locked for a very long time. He reached across the table, didn't grab her hand, just rested his there, an offering, not a demand. She placed her hand over his. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent and loud. Inside that small kitchen, something broken for 11 years began, quietly, carefully, to breathe again. The courtroom was packed. Olivia walked in with her head up, 8 months pregnant, every step deliberate. She felt every eye, journalists, spectators, Victor's family sitting rigid on one side. Victor sat at the defense table in a gray suit, composed, almost sympathetic. He had prepared well. But so had she. When Olivia took the stand, the room went completely still. She spoke clearly. No tears, no trembling. She described the freezer, the temperature, the sound of the door, Victor's exact words through the intercom. The bridge, the fall, the water. She watched the jury's faces the whole time. Victor's attorney came hard, tried to paint her as unstable, emotional, confused, used the word fragile 3 times in 4 minutes. Olivia let him finish. Then she said quietly into the microphone, "A fragile woman does not survive -50 degrees for 10 hours while pregnant with twins. She does not fight a river current. I am not fragile. I am here, and I am telling you exactly what happened." The jury foreman wrote something down. Victor's jaw tightened, just for 1 second before his mask returned. But Olivia saw it. She knew. He was afraid. Good. Victor took the stand on a Thursday. He was good, she would give him that. His voice broke at the right moments. Eyes went soft when he mentioned the pregnancy. He called her my wife every single time, never just Olivia, a small, deliberate detail. He said she had been struggling emotionally, that he had worried for months, that the night she went into the river he had rushed to find her after she called in distress, that he arrived just after she went in, paralyzed with shock. A good story, carefully built, delivered with exactly the right amount of grief. But Connor's legal team had spent 3 months pulling every thread. The cross-examination lasted 4 hours. They walked Victor through the insurance policy, the timing, the amount. Showed the jury the hidden financial accounts, the transfers, the one-way flight to Phoenix booked for the day after Olivia's due date. Then they played the intercom audio. The courtroom went absolutely silent as Victor's voice filled the room, flat and calculated, explaining the insurance payout to his pregnant wife locked in a freezer. Someone in the gallery made a sound. Victor's composure cracked. Everyone saw it. His attorney asked for a recess. Victor came back to the stand looking like a man who already knew how his story ended and was only now accepting it. In the final moments of the trial, Victor's entire plan came apart completely. Connor's legal team presented the financial records, every hidden transfer, every secret account, the full paper trail of a man who had been planning this for over a year. The jury saw a husband who had not acted in a moment of madness. He had planned it carefully, coldly, over months. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Olivia sat completely still. Connor was beside her, not touching her, just there. The foreperson stood. Guilty. Attempted murder, aggravated assault, fraud. The judge set sentencing. The bailiff moved toward Victor. And for one moment, just one, Victor looked directly at Olivia across the courtroom. She looked straight back without blinking. She wanted him to see her clearly, alive, upright, unbroken, the woman he had thrown into a river and written off and tried to erase from existence. She was still here. He looked away first. And when he did, Olivia felt something settle inside her, not revenge, not satisfaction exactly. Something quieter than that. Something that felt like the moment you finally put down something you have been carrying too long. She was done carrying Victor Collingwood. With Victor convicted, Olivia turned to the man who had stood beside her through all of it. Connor had not just pulled her from a river, he had shown up every single day after. He had sat in hospital waiting rooms. He had built a legal case that dismantled Victor's lies one by one. He had arranged the safe house and attended every hearing, and never once made her feel like she owed him anything for any of it. She thought about that a lot during those weeks. The men she had known in her life had always attached cost to their help. There was always a condition, always a price paid quietly over time. Connor attached nothing. He just showed up, every time, without announcement. She asked him once why he never asked for anything in return. He looked at her like the question confused him. "You already gave me something," he said. "You let me be here, that's not nothing." She didn't know what to do with that kind of man at first. She had forgotten they existed. But she was learning again, slowly. The way you learn to trust your legs after a long time off your feet, carefully, then with more confidence, then one day you realize you are no longer thinking about falling. Connor Hartley had always believed in her, even when she hadn't believed in herself. Especially then. 3 weeks after Victor's conviction, Olivia moved into a new apartment. Small, clean, completely hers. Nobody picked it for her. Nobody told her which neighborhood was right or which furniture was acceptable. She walked through 5 places with James in a carrier on her chest and Clara asleep in the stroller, and chose this one because the kitchen window faced east and the morning light came in warm and gold. That was reason enough. She painted the nursery herself. Connor offered to help twice. She said no both times, then called him on day 3 and admitted she had somehow gotten paint on the ceiling and couldn't figure out how to fix it without making it worse. He came over, said nothing about it, just fixed it. They ate dinner after, takeout on the floor because the table hadn't arrived. James slept in the bassinet. Clara insisted on being held, so Connor held her while eating one-handed. It was ordinary, completely ordinary. And sitting there on the floor of her new apartment, Olivia realized she had not had an ordinary moment in so long she had forgotten they existed. Just warm food, a sleeping baby, someone across from you who wanted nothing except your company. She hadn't known she was starving for ordinary until she was already eating it. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces. The first night she slept through without waking cold and shaking. The first morning she stood at the east window with coffee and felt something close to peace. The first time someone touched her arm unexpectedly and she didn't pull away. She saw a therapist twice a week. A calm woman named Dr. Anand who never rushed her and never told her how she was supposed to feel. Olivia talked about the freezer, the river, Victor's voice through the intercom, Connor's face on the riverbank. She talked about the letter she had written at 22, the 14 missed calls she hadn't answered, the choice she had called noble for 11 years that was maybe, underneath everything, just fear. Dr. Anand asked her once, "What would you tell the woman who wrote that letter?" Olivia thought for a long time. "I would tell her that letting someone love you is not the same as being a burden, and that running from love to protect it is still running." She went home and sat with James and Clara on the nursery floor, read them a story they were too young to understand. They watched her face the whole time. Children always know, she thought. They know who is safe. They had chosen Connor from the beginning. Smart kids. Victor was sentenced to 22 years. Olivia didn't go. She had said everything she needed to say in that courtroom. She didn't need to watch the ending. Instead, she took James and Clara to a park near the apartment. November again, 1 full year since the river, trees bare, air sharp. But the sun was out, and the light did the thing it does in autumn where everything looks lit from the inside. She sat on a bench and let herself feel it. Not triumph, not victory, just the quiet miracle of being alive on a cold morning with her children in a stroller and her breath making small clouds in the air. Connor found her there. She had told him where she'd be. He sat beside her, bought 2 hot chocolates from a nearby cart, handed her one. They sat without talking for a long time. Then he said, "It's been a year." She said, "I know." He said, "How are you?" She thought about it honestly, the real answer. "I'm not the same person who went into that river, but I think I'm better. I think whoever I am now, she's someone I actually like." Connor looked at her. "I like her too," he said. "I always did." There was a conversation they had been circling for months. Both of them knew it. They moved around it carefully, the way you move around something that matters too much to rush. One evening after the babies were asleep, Connor brought it to the table. He didn't dress it up. He told her he had never stopped loving her, that he had tried genuinely, that he had built an entire empire partly to fill the space she left, that none of it had filled it, that he wasn't saying this as pressure or expectation, just truth, because she deserved it and he was tired of standing beside it and saying nothing. Olivia listened to every word. Then she gave him her truth. That she had been wrong to leave. That she had dressed fear as sacrifice and believed her own story for 11 years. That she was still learning who she was outside of survival. That she wanted to find that out. She told him she wasn't ready for promises. But she was ready to stop running. He nodded, didn't push, just said, "That's enough, that's everything." And in that quiet apartment with 2 sleeping babies down the hall they sat together, not as who they used to be, but as who they had become. And decided, without a declaration, to find out what that meant. Olivia's strength didn't come from surviving the freezer or the river or the courtroom. It came from them. James and Clara. Every morning she woke up and they were there, loud, demanding, completely unaware of everything she had gone through to get them here, and something in her chest reset. Something that fear kept trying to take got handed right back. She was a mother. Not a victim. Not a survivor navigating trauma. A mother with 2 children who needed her present and warm and alive, and that need was the most powerful thing she had ever felt. She stopped waiting to feel normal again. She decided to build normal, deliberately, brick by brick. Routines that were hers, mornings that belonged to her, choices, small ones, large ones, that no one made for her. She was not the woman Victor had tried to erase. She was not even the woman who had written that letter at 22. She was someone new, someone forged, someone who had been thrown into the worst possible cold and had come out on the other side knowing, really knowing, what she was made of. And what she was made of was enough. More than enough. Her children looked up at her like she was the whole world. She was starting to believe them. Spring came slowly that year, but it came. Olivia went back to work part-time, a pharmaceutical consulting firm that had reached out after her case. She sat in her first meeting back and realized somewhere in the middle of a presentation that she was fully present, not performing it, not pretending. Actually there. It was a small thing. It felt enormous. She started running again in the mornings, short at first, then longer. She ran along the riverbank, sometimes different river, different city, and she felt the water beside her and she did not flinch. She was taking back everything fear had tried to own. One morning a woman with a stroller passed her and smiled. That stranger smile, the one that costs nothing and means everything. And Olivia smiled back and felt such a rush of gratitude for that small exchange she had to stop running for a moment. She was grateful for smiles now, for morning light, for her children laughing in the next room, for paint on the ceiling and takeout on the floor and a man who showed up without being asked. Victor had tried to reduce her to nothing. Instead, he had stripped away everything unnecessary and left her with exactly what mattered. She ran harder. The river caught the morning light and turned gold. As Olivia looked at her children, she knew she had won. Not in the courtroom, though that mattered. Not when Victor's guilty verdict was read, though she had needed that. She won the moment she chose to live fully again. The moment she stopped surviving and started building. James was walking now, confidently, recklessly, with absolutely no regard for furniture. Clara watched everything with careful eyes and moved only when she was certain, which Olivia recognized completely. She watched them one evening from the kitchen doorway. Connor was on the floor with them, building something out of blocks that James immediately knocked down, which James found funnier than anything that had ever happened in the history of the world. Clara rebuilt it methodically, piece by piece. Olivia watched and thought about the woman on the bridge, 7 months pregnant, thrown into dark water by the man who promised to protect her. That woman had fought. Every stroke, every breath, every day after. And this ordinary evening, these 2 children, this man on the floor laughing at blocks, this was what she had fought for. Not justice, not victory. This. Victor's cruelty had met its answer, not in a courtroom. In this room, in this life, in the fact that Olivia Collingwood was still here, still building, still choosing. The final chapter of Olivia's story was just beginning. She knew that now. The worst was behind her, the cold, the water, the lies, the long fight back, all behind her. What was ahead was something she had almost lost the ability to imagine. A future. Hers, fully hers. Connor was beside her in it, not as her rescuer, not as her savior. As her partner. The man who had loved her at 19 and never fully stopped. The man who had watched over her when she didn't know she needed watching and jumped into a river when the police were too slow and sat in every waiting room and never once asked for anything in return. She had stopped running. He had stopped waiting. And in the space where all that ended, something new and solid was growing. James would grow up knowing what a good man looked like. Clara would grow up knowing what a strong woman looked like. Neither of them would ever wonder if they were worth fighting for. Because their mother had already answered that question. In a freezer, in a river, in a courtroom, in 1,000 small daily choices to stay and build and trust and live. Olivia looked at her life, small, specific, carefully chosen, and felt something she had no single word for. The river had tried to take her. The cold had tried to keep her. Victor had tried to end her. And here she was. Warm, whole, alive. Beginning.